Hi there, welcome to the Tequila Onda show. I'm your host, DeeDee Garcia Blase, and we are back. And I hope you guys are having a happy new year so far. And I have a very special year. We're going to start off this year with a very special guest by the name of Stevie Salas. And just a little bit about Stevie Salas. He is a guitar player, writer, producer, and composer. Stevie Salas has recorded on over 70 different albums with artists as diverse as George Clinton, Justin Timberlake, Buddy Miles, T.I., Mick Jagger, and Rod Stewart. Having sold over 2 million solo albums around the world, Stevie has been cited as one of the top 50 guitarists of all time. Dreaming of a career in music, Stevie left the small town of Oceanside, California in 1985. 8 months later, he was discovered by funk music legend George Clinton as the lead guitarist for Clinton's albums. Stevie received his first major label producer credit with, quote, was, not was, unquote, when he co-produced the UK hit, quote, Out Come the Freaks from the album What Up Dog. Rolling Stone magazine listed What Up Dog as one of the top 100 records of the decade. So I actually have a legend with me on the line. He's currently in Austin City, Texas. Welcome to the show, Stevie.
Wow, that was quite an introduction. Hey, can we turn your voice up just a little bit for me?
How about now?
A little louder for me. I'm playing all those football stadiums. I've lost a bit of hearing.
Oh wow, is that better? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better. Thanks.
Perfect. Welcome to the show. And you know, I did watch Rumble, the Indians that rocked. And can you tell me about your latest project? I know you've been traveling all over the country and in Canada and so forth. Tell us about that.
Oh, you watched my film Rumble?
I did.
That won at Sundance. Yeah, it's well, you know, I was in the music business for all my life since I got out of high school. And around 2006, I started working for American Idol, and I was a music director and a consultant there for Daughtry and Adam Lambert and Jordan Sparks and David Cook and a bunch of the idols. And I started to really realize that TV had a massive power globally, and that's where I wanted to start moving into. So I started producing television in Canada in 2006 just to learn how to do it because it was exciting. And during that time, I also went to work at the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C. and New York, and I created a music exhibit about these really amazing Native Americans in history that influenced all the biggest rock stars in the world that I've worked with.
My name is Stevie Salas.
Tyler and all these guys, and they would all talk about these Native American guitar players and musicians, and so I created an exhibit about it that became really popular. And then after that, we just made this film called Rumble, The Indians That Rock the World, and it came out last January 2017, and it won at Sundance. And I pretty much spent the year traveling around the world. I mean, we're everywhere from Sydney, Australia to you know, all over Europe and all over Asia. I mean, just everywhere. So it's been kind of crazy.
You said that, I think it was last week, you said that the film, Rumble, won what is equivalent to Grammys in Canada.
Oh, yeah, I just cannot hear you. I need to hear you louder. I'm sorry.
How about now?
How do I get you louder?
Let me do this a little bit closer. Is that better?
A little bit better if you could. It's really hard to hear you. Now, what were you saying?
Well, you said recently that you won some awards. The film won awards in Canada, equivalent to the Grammys.
Yeah. No. We won a while back. We won the biggest documentary film festival in North America. It's called Hot Docs in Canada. We won up there, which was awesome. But then just recently, we were just nominated for 3 Canadian Screen Awards, which is the Canadian versions of their Academy Awards, because our production is a Canadian production. Last week we got nominated for 3 really big awards. So we'll be going up there in March, and maybe we'll win. You know, it's quite an honor.
Congratulations. In the film that I watched, can you hear me just fine?
Yeah.
In the film, there were some pockets within the film that I kind of wanted to hopefully get some more light into the subject with regard to Randy Casteel. And in the film, they really depicted him as this spirit. His mom was a curandera, and they really touched into the Native Americans that really rocked, you know, their influence in blues and rock and so forth. But what did you know of Randy? Did you guys go on a trip in New Mexico together?
Well, Randy was a guy who was a Native American from Albuquerque, New Mexico, who was the drummer of Ozzy Osbourne. And when I came to LA after high school, I used to watch him on MTV and just think, man, that guy's amazing, right? Little did I know, you know, we were almost related with my families from New Mexico too, going back. You know, I'm Apache, and when we met, I had just finished Rod Stewart, and I was in a situation in my life where I went from my high school band to Rod Stewart, and I was flying around in private jets, and I was all of a sudden I had a ton of money, and I was out of my mind, partying and drugs and drinking and girls, and buying houses, and I was going crazy. And Randy had already been through that phase in his life of he was still pretty crazy, don't get me wrong. He was the drummer of Ozzy Osbourne, but he knew how to balance it. In his spirituality of who he was as a Native man, he had a real balance in life and a real common sense growing up with all the mix of hard rock guys and Chicanos and natives, and he just had this balance that was amazing. And he saw me and he said, you know what, man, you're really screwed up. He goes, I got to take you to New Mexico. And he brought me up to Taos. And he just started to educate me in a real subtle way that kind of in some ways saved my life. And it sounds dramatic, but it's true, because I was going bananas, right? And he taught me how to have a good balance of losing my mind and also keeping my soul and enjoying myself at the same time. You know what I mean? I didn't have to go all one way or all the other. And he was a wonderful person, and he's a legend, you know, in New Mexico. He's a drumming legend. He's a drumming legend in Tucson too, actually, because his band, the Wombleys, before he moved to LA, was really popular in Tucson. I was just recently at the Tucson Film Festival with Rumble, and a lot of Randy Casteel fans were there.
Nice. Did you guys go on a spiritual sort of sabbatical in New Mexico? Because I couldn't quite get that in the film if you did or didn't.
You know, everything that we would do, if you really get real, I'm not talking about like new age real, you know, like man bun and potions and whatever, like, you know, like a movie. But you know what, you can sit down with somebody and really open up your mind. And you know, when you see this scene like in La Bamba, when Richie Valens is all partying down in Ensenada and he meets that healer guy who does the tattoo, and you know, you can meet certain people, and if your eyes and your ears are open, you know, you can learn a lot. And you don't have to go to one of those things where everybody starts, you know, like the Beatles went to see the Maharishi in India, and John Lennon ended up realizing that the guy was sitting there trying to pick up on chicks in front of him. He was a big scam, right? So a lot of those super spiritualized setups often end up to be a little bit of a letdown. And sometimes it's just finding that little balance of understanding, you know, the surroundings around you, the air, the trees, the mountains. And Randy had a way of helping me do that without it being like corny and having to be like, or feel guilty, because, you know, I don't know, you know, I'm still a crazy person in a lot of ways, and you can't play rock and roll and you can't create. Creative people are crazy, you know, and but you have to find a way to not kill yourself. And he was really great at that. So it was a spiritual way, but it wasn't like in a movie where, like, you know, some ghost came and talked to me or nothing like that. Although I feel like sometimes a ghost grab my leg at night and freak me out. So.
Oh wow, that's creepy. That's
yeah.
Listen.
Yeah.
I was listening to your music on Spotify, and I had a question for you with regard to your music, just sort of taking you a little bit away from the Rumble film discussion. But what was the most guttural song, your creation, that you've ever created? and why? Why was it guttural? What was the most soulful thing that you've ever made? Because, you know, I know you're into funk and rock, but what was that song?
You know, there's a lot of times when, you know, as an artist, when I was young, I was able to, you know, in the late 80s, when I came to LA, when I got out of high school from San Diego, you know, the record companies would say to me, Stevie, you know, you do some crazy, you know, I had to play guitar crazy because that's the only way I could try to stand out, right? And then I started producing records because nobody would let me play crazy guitar on the record, so I had to produce the record so I could put my guitar on it, so therefore I could get noticed, right? It was kind of a weird thing. And the record companies would say to me, Stevie, here's you know, $20,000. I want you to go meet this guy in New York and work on some songs with this guy. And then you try some songs with that guy and come home, and the guy would say, like, okay, these songs suck, but this song here is pretty cool. Here's this direction. Why don't you go to Holland now or London, and why don't you, you know, it's crazy. It sounds crazy because they don't do it anymore, but it used to develop you. And the record companies were nurturing places where they were like a farm system, like playing Major League Baseball, and you go to the minor leagues, and they would teach you, and you'd learn until you were ready for the major leagues, which was a major recording contract. And a lot of times most people never made it to that level, just like in professional baseball. Most people never make it to the big leagues. You know, but I was able to learn a lot. And so I did some tracks. I did some things that were pretty cool, you know, like with Terrence Trent D'Arby, we did a song called Perfume Pavilion where we recorded it live in the studio with Terrence Trent D'Arby. I don't know if you remember him, but he was one of the most amazing soul singers in the early 90s. Sold about 20 million records. And working with him, or sitting with Rod Stewart playing a song like Mandolin Wind, or some of these amazing songs with a real amazing singer singing in your ear. I recorded a Stevie Wonder song called I Was Made to Love Her, which was a big hit for Stevie in the 60s, but I did this version with the bass player from David Bowie and the drummer from, at the time he was playing drums with Billy Idol. And we cut this track that people play all over the internet like crazy still to this day. And instead of using, you know, synthesizers and keyboards, I did it all on guitars where it sounded more like maybe Jimi Hendrix or something. But you know, so I've always loved soulful music and soulful singers, and working with amazing singers like Justin Timberlake is amazing, Rod Stewart, Terrence Trent D'Arby, Seal, I worked with Seal, Steven Tyler is amazing, I worked with him, Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger's not such an amazing singer as a singer voice-wise, but he's an amazing stylist. It just blows your mind, you know. So there's a lot of soul that I pick up, and I'm like a sponge, and I looked at playing music as sort of a long journey, and where I was just learning and enjoying and being a fan. And I was lucky enough that someone was paying me all along to be able to do that. So I was able to, you know, make a great living and do that. But, you know, but if I wasn't making money and I didn't have houses or whatever, all that crud that I get to have, I would still be searching for amazing artists to listen to, because I'm a big fan of musicians.
So the most guttural song that you worked on, I'm going to presume, was I Was Made to Love Her, because of the soulfulness.
I would check that track out. That one really, people love that song. You know, people just love that song. I've had a lot of songs that were big hits. You know, You Don't Have to Remind Me by Sash Jordan I wrote, you know. There's always a lot of songs that I've done and worked on, and that were huge, you know, from Eddie Money songs and Was Not Was, and the girls from Bananarama, even when they had Shakespeare's Sister. I mean, I worked on so much stuff since I was a kid. I can't even remember, you know,
wow.
playing guitar in a room with Seal singing. There's nothing like it, you know what I mean? It's like, that guy's amazing, and you know. But if I was to sit down and put a track on and want to impress a woman, I would play I Was Made to Love Her, the Stevie Wonder song, probably.
Now, back to the Rumble film. You made your entrances within the film, and you were sort of the one that sort of introduced Jimi Hendrix style, and you know, who Jimi Hendrix sort of took after. Wasn't it Charlie? Who was the name?
Charlie Patton.
Yeah,
Patton.
Wasn't Charlie Patton?
Charlie Patton was. He was the great unknown guy. See, people normally assume, like I myself always assumed, that Charlie Patton was an African American. You know, we always assumed that the blues, the Delta blues, Mississippi blues, we were always taught. You know, we were taught a lot of things as kids. You know, especially Hispanic and you know, indigenous kids and Hispanic kids, and we were bamboozled a little bit. And I'm not bitter about it, but I mean, let's just be real. I mean, Christopher Columbus did not discover America. I mean, there's there's millions of Native American people here already. It's
right?
just like, you know what I mean? It's like, come on. There's a lot of things we've been told in our lives, you know, that are just ridiculous. So a lot of stuff we learned wasn't really true. You know, when you were a kid, you'd go to school and they'd make you sit down and watch a commercial about how great milk was for you when you're an adult. And maybe that's not so true, but, you know, those commercials were paid for by the dairy industry. You know, they're just brainwashing us. You know, whether it's true or not, we were subject to a lot of information that maybe was true or maybe wasn't true. And one of the things that we always thought was the Delta blues was an African American or a black art form. In some ways it was partly, but it wasn't completely. When you really go back and what Rumble showed in a historic sense, and we did this at the Smithsonian, so you know it's not just somebody saying it, is that the slaves, the Native Americans, the Mexicans, the Scottish, the Irish, all those cultures and all those people who were repressed, they all lived places, and they all had style, and they all had music, and they all had dance, and they all had traditions. And these people together is what created the foundation of what became North America. You know, it wasn't like, okay, the white people created all the industrial stuff and all the money in the banks. Maybe they did, but maybe I don't know. You know, but the Mexicans were great because they invented salsa, and the Indians were good for nothing, and you know, maybe pottery. And, you know what I mean? It's like a bunch of load of crap. And so all this beautiful traditions and beautiful styles and things that were there are what created these mixtures of amazing culture, which became the flavor of North America. And that's really what Rumble's about.
Wasn't Charlie Patton, didn't Howlin' Wolf, didn't he attribute
right, he
his
taught
style?
Howlin' Wolf, he taught Pop Staples. See, Charlie Patton was, you know what's funny is, okay, Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top is a buddy of mine. Mm-hmm. And one day he pulls me aside. We're in Florida. I saw him somewhere. He goes, "Hey, Stevie," he goes, "look at this picture here, Charlie Patton. It looks to me like he's got some wavy curly hair." You know what I mean? Like, he was showing me that it was not an afro on his head, right? It was like this guy was a mix of cultures, Choctaw Indian with African American and Scottish, and he started playing the guitar. See, a lot of times the drum was outlawed. The Native American drum was outlawed during those early 1900s, late 1800s, because it was an instrument that could make, you know,
a revolution.
People were afraid of, right?
A call.
People were afraid you could communicate with it. You could start a riot. You could start a war. You could, you know, talk to other people, and the people who owned everybody and controlled everything couldn't understand it, so they outlawed it. And so Charlie Patton starts playing the guitar, and there's no drums, right? So he's playing these beats. If you listen to these beats, he's playing powwow beats on the guitar with playing strings. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the guitar became the new drum, sort of, and the sounds of nature and the sounds of what was going on around became what was the foundation of the blues, really.
That was one of the, you know, I think it was a folk artist that was interviewed in Rumble. I forgot her name. But
Mildred Bailey.
I believe so. And she was just really honing in on the fact that how the drums and sort of what Charlie Patton would play, you know, use his guitar as a drum. It was sort of, you know, the chanting type of music that Native Americans would sing, and the beat.
Yeah. I'll tell you something else. Like, you could take Mildred Bailey, for instance, who in our film, you know, we use. And first of all, I want to tell everybody out there that the film is full of the most famous rock stars and people that you've known in the last, you know, 40 years talking in the film. And the reason that I had so many superstars, like, for instance, from Mildred Bailey, who was from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. She was a Native American from Coeur d'Alene Reservation. She was the first woman to ever have her own radio show. So that's cool for you guys, for you, right? Look at that. And she was the first woman lady band leader. You know what I mean? She was a woman band leader. And her first employee was a guy called Bing Crosby, who went on to become the biggest selling recording artist in history until Elvis. Okay? So she taught Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett was in my film talking about her because he studied her. That's how he learned how to sing. Sinatra studied her. Most people assume she was an African American, and she was actually a Native American from Coeur d'Alene Reservation. And back then, if you were dark skinned, you were just colored, right? Maybe, you know, if you're Mexican, there was a line there. But if you were dark enough skin, people just considered you to be an African American, or they call you colored. You know, this is all really weird. So a lot of these people didn't get their due, but they influenced so many people. So when you have Link Ray starting to play, you know, a Shawnee Indian trying to play distorted guitar in 1958, and Pete Townsend, Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin are all listening to him, 17-year-old kids, and learning how to play guitar. I mean, that kind of influence is unbelievable. You know, so we had to have those people in the film tell you that. So, you know, if Eric Clapton wrote Jesse Ed Davis was a genius, you know, you're going to have to think, well, I think Eric Clapton knows what he's talking about. But if I told you he was a genius, you might go, I don't know. You know, so I had to go out and get the biggest, most famous people in the world in the film to tell the stories.
Well, you did an amazing job. I watched that, and I would rewind. I mean, I rewound the parts that you were in it, so in preparation of this interview. But I really honed in also on Charlie Patton and some of the blues, you know, the Delta blues history. I did not know about the drum being outlawed until I watched that documentary.
Yeah. How did you see that one where it said there was 3 bathrooms? I'd never seen that before.
Oh, yeah.
You know, our director was really amazing, and our archival people, they found these things that none of us had ever seen, where there was 3 bathrooms. It had a bathroom for black, a bathroom for whites, and a bathroom for Indians. Yeah.
I've never seen that photo, so that was mind-boggling.
Yeah. I'm with you. I mean, a lot of things, I was the executive producer of the film, and it was a story I'd worked on since I was a kid, but I was constantly baffled by everything once we all started getting into it and everybody's brains were working in one direction. The film just came out amazing.
That film is amazing. And I was pleased, Stevie, that it was a whole hour and 30 minutes, a little bit over an hour and 30. And it just, I mean, everything, there was so much information. I was never bored. I can see why it won awards. I kind of want to fast forward to your guitar, the Idolmaker, because I did a little bit of research on you to that regard. What made you want to create, is it 3 guitars?
Well, let me tell you something. When you're a young musician, you know, I was a young kid in San Diego. My father left Wyoming and joined the Marine Corps. My mother left New Mexico with her family and settled in North San Diego County. And my father and my mother met, both really families hailing deep down from New Mexico, even though my father had migrated to Wyoming. Apache Indians, both sides. They met, fall in love, get married. I get born on the beach in Oceanside, California. So I grew up surfing, right? Just being a surfer and playing guitar and riding motocross, fishing, doing all these normal things. And I started playing guitar. I'm in high school. My band in high school was really popular. I started playing all around the country at colleges. I decided I'm going to move to LA. I want to make it music. So when you're trying to make it music, at least back then, I don't know how it is for kids now, but one of the biggest things you dream of, there's a couple things. You dream of being in a guitar magazine, having them write about you. It's a dream. Getting an ad or an endorsement so people give you 3 guitars, that's a dream.
Wow.
And then maybe getting your guitar on the wall at a Hard Rock Cafe. That's a mega dream too. You know, so as all these things started happening for me, I started getting guitar endorsements in the late 80s. Then later on, I started in the early 90s. I was able to start designing my own style of guitars with big companies like Yamaha and Hamer and Washburn. And then in the mid-90s, once I had sold a couple million records, you know, then people were paying me $100,000 a year to play guitar. So now it's a real business for me, right? Mm-hmm. And then after the 2000s, I'd made I'm not bragging, but I'd made a lot of money, and I was disenchanted with the music business. I was sick of it, pretty much, because I'd done it for 10 years straight. Eat, drink, and slept it. World tour, travel. I was sick of it. And I started to design guitars. I went through this weird phase. I said, I'm no longer going to wear white socks. or black socks. I'm only going to wear colored socks, and I'm only going to play weird-shaped guitars. So if you look at photos of me from the 2000s on, you mostly see me playing bizarre guitars. So I started getting guitars made for me, or designing guitars that really were different looking. And sometime, I don't know, a few years back, I called a friend Hans-Peter Wilfer, who owns Warwick and Famous Guitars. And he was in Germany, and he was a friend of mine. I flew out to Germany for a party, is what it was. There was a big party out there, and we all went to this party in Germany. And Hans-Peter told a story about how his father had started a company called Famous Guitars, and he wanted to bring it back as a tribute to his father who had passed away. And my father and I were super close. And so that story touched my heart. So I told Hans-Peter, I go, you want me to come to Germany and design a guitar? And he said, would you please? So I started thinking about it. I made a few drawings. I got on a plane. I flew off to Germany, and I sat in the factory there with a guy called Marcus Spangler, who was the main designer, and we designed the Idolmaker. And what happened was it came out about 3 years ago at the NAMM show. This week is the NAMM show in Anaheim, California, big music trade show. And so it was 3 years ago or 4 years ago this week. And we debuted my guitar, and my guitar exploded at the NAMM show. It became the guitar of the show. It was featured on every magazine. It was talked about. It got an insane amount of press. So I started to build a stable. I signed Phil X from Bon Jovi as one of our guitar players. We have an amazing stable of musicians now that endorse Famous. We design these amazing guitars, and the Idolmaker is that guitar. But it's not my first. I designed guitars for Washburn in the 90s and for Hamer and for Yamaha and for other companies that I used to endorse. But did you like the shape of the Idolmaker?
I did. Where can a person buy that? One of your guitars? Oh,
now Famous is just starting Famous USA, so they'll be in all the stores in the USA. But right now, mostly people are like Nikki Sixx just wrote me from Motley Crue, and he just bought one. But he had one custom ordered from Germany, So I don't know how people are buying them, but the people are getting them all over. Phil from Motorhead's playing one, and the guys in Alice in Chains are playing them. Williams playing one in Alice in Chains. So they're getting around, but pretty soon they'll be in all the stores. That's the goal. But mostly now people custom order them.
FramousUSA.com.
Famous.com.
Yeah, Famous.com. What do you think about the Jimi Hendrix replica guitar that is being put in Guitar Center?
It's a pile of crap.
What? Oh my God! I just bought that guitar. That's my very first guitar. So you're saying I should take that back and get your guitar?
No. Mine's super expensive. That Jimi Hendrix one's super cheap, right?
It's $1,000.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah. Did I get ripped off? I got ripped off,
didn't I? Maybe it's a nicer one. Is it a Fender or a Gibson?
Fender. It's a Fender.
Stratocaster? No, okay. See, I saw these Gibson ones that were cheap.
Oh God, no.
What are you doing? Okay, so this could be a nice guitar, but next time you see me, bring it. Let me plug it in and play with it, and let me make sure it's rocking and set up properly for you.
All right, you got it. Is there anything you want to let my audience know about you, your future projects? Where can they get a hold of you on Twitter, Facebook? Where can they?
Stevie Salas on Twitter, and it's Stevie Salas on Facebook. And then I have a secret Facebook that used to just be for my old pals called Nishi, Nishi boy, B-O-Y, Salas, Nishi boy Salas, because the Nishi people were the original human beings, so that was my secret name. And people of the earth, the Nishi people. And so but now everyone writes me on that one. And, I'm 100 years old now, so I'm not the most up to speed on my social media. But, my film Rumble now has been turned into, it's new history. It's unwritten history. So it's now, I'm speaking at South by Southwest in a few weeks. And it's going to be, it's about a month and a half away, I guess. But my film Rumble is now a part of school curriculum. They've made it into a school curriculum. So I'm going to be speaking on behalf of some educators, and I'm speaking at Notre Dame University coming up in, I think in March. And I'm going to be at the Oklahoma Powwow speaking there with all my brothers. And I'm going to be at the Tribal Fair at the Seminoles, who own all the Hard Rock hotels and cafes. So, we're just traveling and having fun, and I'm writing a new TV series right now, and I'm just trying to enjoy being a dad. My son is 10 years old, and I'm the coach of his football team, so I fly in, for the game, and then I usually fly out the same night if I got to go work somewhere else.
Wow.
And I'm busy, but I'm having fun.
Now, you still live in Austin, right? Because that's where I met you. I met you at the Robert Rodriguez Mariachi Trilogy.
Yeah.
And I noticed that there's some Getty images online of you wearing a Dusk to Dawn T-shirt. Were you an actor in the television series or something?
No. You know, Robert's my friend, right? I had such a good time that night because I was sitting up there on that throne, hanging out, talking with Robert all night. I hadn't seen him in a while. And Robert and it's funny because all these security guards kept coming up thinking I was a fan. Okay, buddy, it's time to go. And Robert, what are you doing? He's my friend. Oh, sorry. But everyone kept trying to throw me out. It was hilarious. And so Robert one time called me, and I have a book that's out called When We Were the Boys, which is a book about when I was a kid, and I got that gig with Rod Stewart right out of high school. And it's fun. It's a funny book. If you ever want to know what it was like to walk in and audition for a superstar, join a band, get on a private jet, and play football stadiums, and almost get fired every week, you should read my book. You can get it on Amazon.
I'm going to read your book.
Stevie Salas, yeah. And I was doing a book signing at the ACL, the Moody Theater in Austin, and Robert called me and said, "Hey, I'm filming tonight. Come down." He goes, "It's going to be raining blood." That's like Robert, if you know who Robert. Like it's going to be raining blood tonight. He was doing a scene from Dusk Till Dawn. He was shooting the TV series, and there was a whole scene where there was a massive killing and vampires and all this madness, right? So I go down on set and hang out with him, and he gave me a T-shirt from Dusk Till Dawn T-shirt.
Okay.
And I kind of wore it to help promote his TV series because I was wearing it on tour over in Japan and Australia and all over. But I wore it mostly because it was just super, super soft and it was super comfortable. So I really liked it. So it was a win-win for me. So there'd be a big picture of me, you know, on stage somewhere around the world, and I'd end up in a magazine. I go, "Hey, Robert, check this out, man. I'm giving you some press." But realistically, the shirt it's super soft, so I love wearing it. So it was it was a double thing for me.
All right. Well, then that explains
I saved
that.
it here in my drawer, so when you come to visit, you can try it on and see how soft it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be down there probably for South by Southwest. I have some friends there, and it was nice meeting you there, by the way. And
yeah, we were hanging at the Four Seasons, all like rock stars.
We almost died that night too, didn't we?
I mean, I'm speaking at South by on the morning of March 8th, I think it is. Is that a Thursday?
I don't know.
March 8th, I think it's a Thursday. Whatever that Thursday is, I am going to be speaking, and I'm going to be speaking with a woman called Dr. Jolie Proudfit, a Native American woman with a doctorate who works in film and works in Washington, D.C. She does all kinds of stuff, really intelligent woman. And we're going to be talking about Rumble and the education system. It's going to be really cool. You should come.
All right. To my audience, we're going to wrap it up. To my audience, I just want to invite everybody who's listening to take a look at Rumble. It's a film about the Indians who rocked the world, and it's a Sundance winner. And it's an award-winning film. And Stevie Salas, my guest, is a Native American rock star, a legend. Who's
right? I don't know about that.
You are
I have
a
a good
rock
time,
star.
Though, I'll tell you that.
You're a rock star who created 3 guitars.
They can get the film on Amazon too.
That's right. You can look at Rumble if you're like me and you're impatient and you want to know what the hype is with regard to this film. Go to Amazon, and if you're a Prime member, it's free for us. Yeah. So watch Rumble tonight, this week. And Stevie, I want to thank you for being my guest, and I hope to see you again soon.
Don't be a stranger, okay? Have some fun.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
That was fun. That was fun, Osvaldo.